think that, oh, cryptos, there's not that many people, it's not that interesting, institutions will never do it. Every time the naysayers are proven wrong. And I think as Yoni, he and I both kind of seen some of these cycles kind of come and go. And I think this cycle has a lot of momentum, a lot of breadth globally. It's not just retail, and I think we'll continue to see this cycle continue in a positive way. I frankly think people have underestimated how important having the United States SEC, go from an active antagonist and a lot of headwinds on the market to, really tailwinds as a very important U.S. regulator. I think is going to be. I think we still have a lot of room to run on that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I remain very bullish and excited about the next chapter. And I agree that the breadth of the bull cycle here, the length often changes and evolves. Sorry about the sirens outside. Mass adoption comes from when users don't have to think about how it works, what the back-end infrastructure looks like. If you think about, if you compare the cycle of the adoption of the internet, some people say, oh, the internet kind of was born in the late 90s. It's like, well, actually, the internet was born in the early 70s in kind of a U.S. Department of Defense, ARPANET, and then it evolved in the 90s because it became a whole lot easier to use. You went from really defense and military to they added universities. Then along comes HTML and HTTP, and all of a sudden, and really SMTP, and all of a sudden it was now usable. And then you went through 20 or 30 years of growth that we're seeing and experiencing today in the internet as we know it. I think we're still in the 70s and 80s of blockchain and crypto. It's still, we all have this experience. It's still kind of hard to use often. Look, we've all probably, many of us have sent crypto to somebody else, and you send a small transaction to make sure it goes through, and you're like, okay, did you get that? And then there's a whole bunch of things that I think will get easier. And by, not, I don't want to say hiding the back end, it's just, if we want mass adoption, we need to make it easier in across the board, and that's when the utility and just the opportunity keeps growing. And I think we still underestimate how big this could be in the next decade or so. Yeah. Look, I think there's no doubt Ripple has always viewed ourselves to some degree, and consistent with what Yoni described, as kind of a bridge between traditional finance and decentralized finance. And, said another way, it's like, okay, here's the legacy infrastructure with a new infrastructure. There needs, in our judgment, to be bridges between those. Some in crypto, I think early on, were really much, hey, there's going to be a separate, distinct, and it's going to be independent, and there's going to be, the one's going to win over time. And it's like, you're going to have a blended infrastructure for, I think, a very long time.
So the key words he said here was traditional finance and decentralized finance. Stated another way, legacy infrastructure and this new infrastructure, meaning that there's the traditional bank, government infrastructure, and then there is the crypto, the decentralized, meaning that there's no one who can control the infrastructure. So what he's saying is that there was one that thought that it would be a infrastructure that would stand right beside the traditional infrastructure and overthrow it and be one of its own. And he's saying that Ripple XRP came to be the bridge for the legacy traditional infrastructure to get acquainted with the new world infrastructure, or meaning like to bring the banks up to speed with crypto, unlike Bitcoin that came to basically overthrow traditional banks and the government and have a monetary system of its own.
Ripple's really tried to enable that, as Yoni described, in working with financial institutions, enabling them to use these technologies. But really, if you go back in time, the XRPL, the XRP ledger, was all about tokenizing and enabling the transfer of any type of assets. It was the first decentralized exchange DEX that was available, and we find ourselves, I think, in a really, and part of the excitement about what's going on in XRP right now is without the headwinds of the SEC, some of those tools and capabilities that have always been there are now unlocked in a way that we don't have the headwinds of the SEC fighting with us about it. And I think particularly around some of the tokenization of other assets and leverage of a DEX, it really plays into where the world is today and where the world's heading. Look, our goal is to make sure that the XRP ledger is the most efficient, the most trusted, the most utility, and having a stablecoin on the XRPL that is robust, efficient, reputable. Ripple has worked with institutions for years now, and I think we have a very trusted brand. And look, we also have a very large balance sheet that we think, if needed, could be helpful in making the RLUSD or Ripple USD successful.